Strasbourg, July 1518. A woman named Frau Trophea steps out of her timber-framed house into the narrow cobblestone street, alone, silent, waiting, without music, without warning, without a single word to anyone. She begins to dance. Her feet twist on the stones. Her arms rise. A baker stops. A child stares. Two old women whisper and cross themselves.
What is
Nobody
that?
understands what they are seeing. Nobody
Keep
moves to help her.
silent.
An hour passes, then 2, then 4. She does not stop. Sweat soaks her dress. Her breath is ragged, but her feet keep moving. The sun sinks behind the cathedral. Candles appear in windows. Shutters close. And in the deepening blue of dusk, Frau Trophea is still dancing. Her husband finds her. He begs her to stop. He grabs her shoulders. He shouts her name. She does not hear him. She dances. Her shoes fall apart. Her feet begin to bleed. Dark red smears the cobblestones with every step. She does not wince. She does not stop. The sun rises. A full day has passed. And in the gray morning light, Frau Trophea is still dancing. This is only the beginning. To understand what happened next, you need to understand Strasbourg. In 1518, it was a jewel of the Holy Roman Empire. Wealthy, proud, a free imperial city, a hub of commerce. Merchants traded wine and wool. The cathedral was one of the tallest structures in the world. But by 1518, something darker crept into the city. 3 years of failed harvests, rye rotting in the fields, wheat too expensive for the poor. Smallpox tore through the quarters of the poor. Leprosy disfigured the forgotten. Syphilis, newly arrived from across the sea, rotted entire families alive. Mothers watched their children grow thin. Fathers sold their tools for a single loaf of bread. Death had become familiar, too quiet. Tiny wooden coffins filled the graveyards. Priests muttered through dozens of funerals a day. The bells of Strasbourg rang almost without pause. The church had a simple explanation. God was angry. The end of the world was near. Every Sunday, sermons thundered about punishment, sin, and damnation. People turned to saints, to relics, to folk magic. They lit candles for miracles that never came. They whispered to bones of the dead. One saint mattered more than others. Saint Vitus, patron of dancers, patron of epileptics, patron of those gripped by uncontrollable, inexplicable movement of the body, hunger, disease, fear, superstition. By 1518, Strasbourg was a city pushed to the edge of its sanity. All it needed was a spark. 6 days. That is how long Frau Trophea danced before something impossible happened. She never stopped, not to eat, not to drink, not to sleep. Then, on the 7th day, something broke. A second woman stepped into the street. She looked at Frau Trophea, and then she began to dance. Then a man, a baker in his flour-dusted apron. He set down his loaves, stepped into the lane, and began to dance beside them. Within a week, dozens were dancing. Shopkeepers, farmers, mothers. They spilled from alleys into the squares, strangers to each other, bound by the same madness. By the end of the month, the number had grown to nearly 400 people, dancing in the streets of Strasbourg. All at once, they were not dancing for joy. Their faces showed confusion, panic, horror. Their bodies moved without their permission. Their minds were trapped inside. Witnesses described the dancers as entranced, glassy-eyed, unaware of their surroundings, unable to recognize family members, unable to respond to their own names. Some moaned, some wept, some begged passing strangers to help them stop, but their feet would not listen. Their legs kept moving. Their minds begged for rest.
Please,
their bodies
just
refused.
listen.
It was as if something else had taken hold, something patient, something cruel. Day turned to night, night turned to day. The dancing never stopped. Under moonlight, under rain, under the indifferent gaze of the cathedral bells, families tied their loved ones to beds. The ropes did not help. The bodies kept twitching. The feet kept moving beneath the sheets. Nothing worked. Strasbourg was no longer a city. It was a stage, a vast, unwilling theater of madness, and the authorities realized something terrible. They had to act. The first deaths came quickly. A man collapsed mid-step, clutching his chest. His heart had given out. His body fell. His feet kept twitching. Then another and another. Heart attacks, strokes, their bodies, pushed past every human limit, began to fail, one by one, dropping into the dust. For others, death came slower. Days of dancing without food, without water, without sleep, until the body simply could not go on anymore. Chroniclers would later write that 15 people died every single day. 15 bodies, dragged off the cobblestones, while around them, the dancing continued. The city council gathered. Nobles, priests, and physicians sat around a heavy oak table. They argued for hours. They had to choose a cure. After days of argument, they reached a decision so strange, so reckless, that history has never quite believed it. They chose more dancing. They built wooden stages in the open squares, in the guild hall, platforms, carpenters said, so the dancers could have more room to move. They hired musicians, fiddlers, drummers, pipers. Entire bands were brought in from neighboring towns. The authorities told them to play, and play, and play. The physicians had a theory. Hot blood, overheated tempers. The only cure, they insisted, was to dance the fever out, to exhaust the sickness from the body. The cure was a catastrophe. The music drew more dancers in. More bodies joined the frenzy. More fell, more died. It made everything worse. By the height of the outbreak, the bodies were being stacked. Rows of corpses laid along the walls. Strasbourg was burying its citizens faster than it could pray. Finally, after weeks of failure, the authorities reversed themselves. Music was banned in the city. The fiddles fell silent. The drums were locked away. So what was it? What really made hundreds of people dance themselves to death? 5 centuries later, historians and scientists still cannot fully agree. The first theory is biological. Ergotism, a toxic mold that grew on damp rye grain, the very bread that Strasbourg's poor depended on to survive. Ergot contains alkaloids, chemical cousins of LSD. They can cause hallucinations, convulsions, the feeling that your limbs are moving without your permission, terrifying visions. But there is a problem with this theory. Ergotism usually paralyzes the legs. It does not make you dance for days. It makes you unable to walk. The second theory is psychological. Mass psychogenic illness, a collective breakdown of the mind, triggered by extreme stress, reinforced by watching others succumb. Famine, plague, the fear of hell. The population of Strasbourg was living in a psychological pressure cooker, and sometimes, under enough pressure, the mind simply shatters. Today, most historians believe this is the closest answer. A shared trance, a contagion not of the body but of the brain, spread through fear itself. The third theory is spiritual, the one the people of 1518 believed with all their hearts. This was a curse, a punishment from Saint Vitus himself. Some clerics went further. They called it possession, demons, devils, evil spirits crawling into the bodies of the sinful, and many peasants agreed. Some dancers were taken by cart to a shrine of Saint Vitus in the hills. There, they were given red shoes and told to pray, to beg, to weep. The results at the shrine were strange. Some dancers returned home healed, calm, silent. Others collapsed on the steps and never rose again. Modern medicine remains cautious. There is no single explanation that fits everything. Not ergot, not hysteria, not faith. Maybe it was all three. Maybe more.